Hey there, kiddos. Here we go again. So, Chapter 4 is on sensation and perception. The basic definition of sensation is the process of receiving stimulus energies from the external environment. Basically, it's just receiving information from outside. Now, perception, on the other hand, is interpreting or organizing that information. There are different types of sensations. I'll actually post, if you guys want, for extra credit. There's a really neat video about how the brain works, and it talks about different electric impulses applied to the brain through a device that is created to see if they can manipulate things that the brain does or things that the body does, or using the psychology behind magic tricks, which are sleight of hand, what they call sleight of hand. And one of the things that they actually talk about in that video is what they call synesthesia. And synesthesia is experiencing one sense through another sense. Or when one sense induces another sense. So when you're trying to remember numbers, each number is a different color. When you're trying to remember words, each word is a different color. So it's ever had somebody say, well, it smells like it tastes, or it tastes like it smells. So it's that using one sense that involves another sense. So that sense of smell can be sometimes integrated with the sense of taste. Another sensation is what they call phantom limb pain. Now, phantom limb pain is something that happens with not every amputee, but with some amputees, when the limb is missing, whether it's an arm, a leg, or whatever. It's those nerve endings are still receiving information, or the brain is still sending information through those nerves. And what happens is there's just no ending place, or that ending place that's supposed to be there isn't there. But your brain is still sending information that your foot itches, that your leg hurts. People that are missing arms or hands sometimes say that what they feel is like fingernails digging into the palms of their hands. There's a story about one person whose arm was amputated just below the shoulder, and he always had a sensation that no matter what he did, his arm was stuck straight out. So imagine going through life feeling like your arm is stuck straight out, but looking at it and knowing it. One, is it not there? It's obviously not sticking straight out. So. But then what that leads to kind of thinking about, though, is how much sensation is enough sensation so that you're actually picking it up. Now, the textbook has a really good image about what they call absolute threshold, which is the minimum amount of stimulation that where a person can sense any type of sensation. And the absolute threshold is, again, it's not absolute, but it's just kind of a guide of how little you can feel, or how little you can experience it and still see or feel or understand that you're sensing it. It talks about vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, and how little one really needs for the brain to actually pick up on that information. Now, there's a lot to be said for subliminal messaging. There was somebody that wanted to test subliminal messaging in movie theaters. Now, back in the day, movie theaters actually used film, and those film were made up of individual images, and the film speed was how fast those images went through the camera, so it was perceived as one flowing image and not just individual frames. But somebody wanted to take a couple of frames out of a movie and input pictures of food, popcorn, soda, candy, things like that, in an attempt to try to pick up or increase sales of at the concession stand um, during movies. Now, it didn't really happen, but you know, that's not to say that sometimes we sense things that maybe we can't see or whatever, or you get that feeling. You know, you can't see somebody staring at you, but sometimes you can feel it, right? So even though that didn't necessarily work, or the experiment about in including food pictures inside a movie didn't really work. But there are other things that happen. When you see, you're not really hungry, but then you see a commercial on television, whether it's Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, whatever. Then it's like, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. You know, you didn't want it until you saw it. And then the same kind of a thing, like when people turn on if people are potty training their little ones, and they turn on the faucet to help them pee, you know, things like that. So it can work with food as well. When you're talking, people start talking about different foods or different reactions from foods. You're talking about thirsty versus non-thirsty words, things like that. So again, it goes kind of back to that what we're talking about, you know, in chapter 2 about the, you know, biases. You know, when you say, yeah, you know, you did what mom told you to do, right? Or you didn't misbehave, did you? You know, so it's that, and not really imperceptible, but that slight bias that we don't, you know, you don't necessarily always pick up on, but it can in fact kind of influence your reactions and your answers. Now, in the PowerPoint presentation for this chapter, there is there's a couple of slides on what they call the Stroop effect, which is, it gives you colors, rectangles, and so what it wants you to do in that first slide is to, you know, say the name of the color of the actual rectangle. And then in the next screen, what it has words written. It's got the word green, but it's written in red ink. It's got the word red written in blue ink. It's got the word yellow written in green ink, so forth and so on. And what it wants you to do is it wants you to name the color of ink, not the word in and of itself. Now, it's going to take a little more time, because what your brain is kind of sort of trained to do is to read the word, not to check the aspects of the word. So, but that's called the Stroop effect, and it's actually pretty fun. And if you do it as a group, or with a group, or within a group, or even if it's just a couple people, it's actually pretty neat to work through kind of fast, or as fast as you can, I guess you'd say. One really cool effect of perception is what they call forced perspective. A lot of people do it with pictures. I have a picture I was actually on a hot air balloon ride, and as we were in the field as our hot air balloon was getting ready, there were other hot air balloons behind us that were going ahead and going up. So one of the really neat pictures that I had taken was, it looks like, you know, I'm actually holding the balloon, but I'm not. I'm like holding the basket, and all you can see is the balloon. So it looks like the balloon is actually on the top of my finger. Your book has it as a picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and there's a lady. It looks, at first glance, it looks like she's holding it up, but she's not. I've also seen pictures of the Eiffel Tower, or people standing across the river at the there's a plaza across the river from the Eiffel Tower called the Trocadero, and there's a big area where people congregate, and so it's just an amazing view over to the Eiffel Tower. But one of the cool things people do is they will stand on the landing of the Trocadero, and they will pick up the Eiffel Tower by its tip. So obviously they're not really picking it up, but it's that forced perspective that really makes photography fun. You can Google different images. Sometimes you see them on Facebook where it's perfectly timed videos, and it's where they're there. One lady was had pictured her dog, and the way the dog was standing, the water, like a water hose, was behind the dog, so it looked like the dog was just had an explosive episode. There's airplanes in the sky where people are picking up airplanes or whatever. Anyway, forced perspective is just a really, really neat aspect of photography, if you're into that. And then from there, okay, we go into sensory adaptation. Now, sensory adaptation is a change in responses or responsiveness to what's going on around you, how your senses respond to what's going on around you. At night, when you're in your bed, when you first walk out, or when you first turn the light off and you're used to being in a bright area, all of a sudden it's dark and you can't see anything. Well, because what's happening is your pupils, in the bright light, your pupils are so small. Your pupils is where the information and the light comes in. So if you're in bright light, see, your pupils are not going to be very big. But in the dark, if I were to close my eye, give it a couple seconds, and then open it up, it's a little bit bigger. And so what happens is, in the dark, your pupils become very, very large. And so what it does is it lets out, or it lets the pupils being so large, is the pupils are large enough to let in any amount of light that's there. So that's why in a dark room or in a dark area, eventually your eyes will adapt to the changes in light. And, the opposite happens when you're in a movie theater and then you walk outside, you're like bright light, and it hurts because your pupils have come accustomed to that dark theater, and then when you come outside, it's bombarded by all the light. Same with I live by the airport, and when I first moved up here, I could hear airplanes all the time. And then after living here for several years, I didn't even notice the airplanes anymore. So it's, again, that sensory adaptation. Mothers, fathers, we call that selective listening, when we don't, the kids are talking and we don't hear them, like, oh, my bad, I really wasn't paying attention, except we understand when that serious cry is, or that serious upset is, or we know what that sounds like, and so our senses are like, okay, whoa, that I got. But that's why we as spouses tend to tune out our significant others, and as parents tend to tune out the kids, because we're so used to certain stimulation that is just so so repetitive that we just don't hear it anymore. So it's neat. Another thing here, we're talking about, leading from hearing into vision. You have 3 different receptors in your eyes. You have green, blue, and red cones, and that helps you to identify colors. However, some people are colorblind, and where it has one of those 3 cones, or one or more of those cones, are don't work correctly, or is inoperative, or has been damaged, or whatever, but it can cause color blindness. And there's different types of color blindness, and the book actually has some really good images to help you understand if you're colorblind. Another fun thing is the optical illusions. You've seen the one where, is it a candelabra or a candlestick, or is it 2 faces? That one's really neat. And then the textbook also talks about, what the eye wants to see. The eye sees the brain sees, the brain interprets what the eye sees. Now, what the eyes see is something different, than what the brain interprets. If you've got a triangle and part of one of the sides of the triangle is missing, you don't see a part of the triangle that's missing. Oh, I don't know what that shape is. Your brain will try to turn it into something. So your brain will do what's called closure, and will basically fill in those gaps so that you can say, oh, okay, that's a shape, that's an animal, that's a this, that's a that. Your brain will also look at proximity. If you're trying to count something and you've got the 4 blocks of 4, you don't have to go around counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You're looking at it and you're like, okay, I see 4 groups of 4. 4 times 4 is 16, without actually having to count the number of blocks that are there. And then another thing, similarity, is whether the eye wants to, the eye can track information, or the eye can track what's going on. You've seen the signs where the light's going. It looks like the light's going around in circles, but what's going on is, in effect, just different lights are blinking at a different time, and they're blinking in a pattern, so it looks as if the light's going around in circles. And in the textbook, it's got example of similarity where you've got circles going up and down, and then a column next to it is squares going up and down. And so it looks like the columns are doing this, and then you flip it over to its side, and then instead of the circles going up and down, the circles are now going across, and then the next row is square, and then the next row is circle, and the next row is square. So even though there's a pattern of, it's just, yes, it is a pattern, but your brain will look at the similarity and it can see what's, it's just neat to see that, what can be done psychologically to kind of trick the eye and the brain into doing what you want it to do. And then when you're talking about this perception, artists are very good at using this type of perception. You have, when you have pictures, and you're looking down a hallway, or, if you're using just a pencil, you're using different shading techniques to show, how does a man look? Is he thin? Is he big? Is he, using just black and white images? And then linear perspective will help, to help you to guide down a long hallway. Now, technically, in the painting, it's a one-dimensional painting, or a two-dimensional painting. But when you're looking at it, it looks like it's a three-dimensional painting, because the way it's drawn is the way the eye is drawn down the picture. You feel like you're looking down a long hallway. But all of this is, what they call monocular cues, which are, the way the eye sees things. One of the monocular cue is what they call a texture gradient, which is where it looks as if information is going away. My favorite example of this is the Star Trek, in the beginning, not Star Trek, Star Wars, sorry. When it, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, and it looks as if the words are traveling into space, but what's happening is it's all on the same plane. It's just as the words go up, or as the words are scrolling, those words are getting smaller, on more than one dimension, and so it looks as if it is going up, 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 and away. And that's pretty much it. There's really some good, some good visuals that the text gives. You can also look on Google for different visual graphs where it's visual perception. What you see isn't what you get, or what you get isn't necessarily what you see. But just different perspectives of different sight perspectives and things of that nature. It's just really, really fun. Really, really fun. So, all right. Well, that does it for Chapter 4 on sensation and perception. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Chapter 4 is already up in Canvas. So, whatever you need, just let me know. All right? Again, you guys stay well, stay healthy, and I will hopefully see you at some point again face to face. If not, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, you guys have a great one, and I'll see you later. Bye.